Welcome to the BS Roll at Night, where we talk about D&D and stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of stuff, are birds real? I just asked bard.google.com, and it says, yes, birds are real. They are part of the class of aves, which include over 10,000 species of vertebrates distinguished by feathers, toothless beaks, and four-chambered heart, a high metabolic rate, a lightweight skeleton, and strong ability to fly.
I think you said it right the first time. Metal graphic rate because they're drones.
Yes, they're drones.
100% drones. The BS Roll at Night, where we talk about birds or drones.
Or if they're not drones.
They're definitely drones.
Definitely drones.
All right, I'll ask if birds are drones.
No,
No, birds are not drones. All right, we cannot trust AI, everyone. Repeat, do not trust AI.
that's what the birds want you to know, or want you to think.
They've infiltrated the system.
We knew it.
It's only a matter of time.
This week, we missed last week because Philium was under the weather.
Too much cocaine.
Yep,
And podcasts don't exist when I'm not around?
they don't.
Aw, shucks. Except those other times that you guys recorded without me, but...
You've been here the whole time.
Oh, okay. In your hearts.
In my bird drone heart. No, I wasn't feeling great last week either. We live in the Midwest, not to dox us or anything, but we do. And it went from 80 degrees with the AC on to 20 degrees in like 3 days. So my allergies have been like in a complete panic. And that's been awesome.
Because Tim has winter allergies.
Apparently I do.
He's allergic to cold.
I think I'm just allergic to the outside, which is why I stay inside.
I think it's
True.
called getting old.
Yeah. Yep. I'm just old. Or something. So we missed a week. We talked about 2E and the guidebook and the player's handbook. And today we're going to be talking about the beloved 3rd edition, which a lot of people love and still love.
It was actually great because I was reading this thing about why people love it. And then I was reading this thing about why people hate it, and they were literally giving the same examples. They're like, this convoluted system, why are they adding all this stuff? Why can't we go back to this? And I'm like, did you listen to what you described? So kind of like a brief, I guess, summary of it. I know, Tim, you did a little bit of research into the history, but obviously it's the successor to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. They removed the Advanced to stop confusing people. And so they're like, all right, cool, it's 3rd edition. We're not going to do Advanced. And then Wizards of the Coast, who had bought them at this time, decided we're no longer going to maintain a basic version of the game. And so it's just all going to be clear and concise in a edition. It is not Advanced. It is just the edition.
Yeah.
So like the talks of it, started in 1994, which is quite some time before it actually launched. In 1995, there was an updated core book that had a disclaimer. This is not Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. And then in 1997, around Christmas, Wizards of the Coast R&D director Bill Slavicsek selected the team to develop 3rd edition. So kind of wild that the timeline was like, all right, cool, we're going to think about it. We're going to release other things, which that's what, there's always things in development. But the fact that like it was 6 years later that they actually released
I like how their promo was, it's not Advanced Dungeons & Dragons anymore.
Yeah, I mean it's good that they put a disclaimer though, like in the book, like, hey, just so you know, like this isn't what you think it is. There's more coming.
Yeah, because AD&D was so convoluted. As we mentioned, it was the 2nd edition, but you could use it for 1E to get higher level. Yeah. And there was 100 editions of 1E, and then AD&D. Nope.
And then I kind of thought it was interesting how they chose the like team to design it. They chose like two very separate people. So they chose Skip Williams, who's like a traditionalist. He's like, this is D&D. We're going to take what Gary Gygax did and we're going to expand on it, but it's going to fall within that, like that style. And then Monty Cook, who is the exact opposite of that, like introduced all these crazy things to the game. And Skip and his friend, who also worked with him previously, Rich Baker, were like, no, this is not going to get added into core D&D. And they took it in front of the CEO, and the CEO's like, no, we're actually going to add all this crazy stuff to it. So
Yeah.
kind of interesting. And originally it was slated for each one. So it was Skip Williams, Rich Baker, and Monty Cook. And they were all slated to basically design a separate book and then kind of come back together and collaborate and like make compromises on things. So it was like, all right, you design this book, I'm going to design this book, and I'm going to design this book. And then we're going to meet and we're going to figure out what works, what doesn't work. So that was kind of interesting because Monty Cook, the guy who was very new ideas, was the one who did the DM guide, which I feel like the DM guide is going to be the thing that kind of, dictates what you're going to do in the monster manual and then the player's handbook.
Yeah.
So I know you were doing a little diving into the history of it. So
Yeah. It was released in 2000. It was the first edition published by Wizards of the West Coast, which had acquired TSR in 97. So it's interesting how they acquired it and was like, hey, we need a new edition to kind of consolidate everything because we have 1E that's all confusing, and then 2E or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which is 2E. This is so convoluted. We're scrapping basically all of this, and now we're making our new edition 3E.
And why did Wizards of the Coast acquire them?
Pray tell.
Oh, they went bankrupt.
Yep.
TSR literally wasn't making any money, so they're like, all right, cool, we're going to buy these for pennies on the dollar.
Probably because it was so convoluted and confusing to play D&D.
What? No, it's not.
How dare you?
So you want to play D&D? Which version? Well, I played the 1986 version. Oh, I had the 1983 version. Guess we can't play.
I mean, but that's like nowadays. Like, hey, if you come at me with Halo 2, and then Nick's got Halo Reach, and then you got Combat Evolved, like we can't play together. So like,
It's true.
It's true.
So just so you guys know, just a disclaimer: 3E is not compatible with any of the Halo series.
Dang it! I thought it was going to work.
343 and Bungie do not come for us.
This is also introducing the D20 system instead of whatever system was in 2E or 1E.
So you mean if I wanted to pick a lock, I would just roll a D20?
Yeah.
But in the previous editions, I would just roll a percentile dice.
Yeah.
But then if I wanted to like fight you,
Mm-hmm.
I might roll like a D6 and you might roll a D10.
Uh-huh.
So now you're telling me that I'm rolling a D20?
Yep.
And what are you rolling?
I wouldn't roll anything. You'd have a DC.
But what if it was like a strength contest?
And then I would roll a D20.
Oh, weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that. I think we should go back.
I like having to use 7 different dice for one action.
Yeah, I was reading. It was just like, percentile dice for trying to do like thieves skills or like picking a lock. When you're in a combat, it was like rolling a D6 and a D5 to dodge. It was like a D4, and it's just like wild because you're like, all right, hold on one second. What do I need to do? We don't have, obviously they didn't have the digital way of being like, what the fuck do I do? Instead, they're like, all right, let me read through here. Let me find this arcane table. Oh, nope, sorry, that's for a different domain of cleric. All right, and it says, oh, I die. Okay, never mind.
Guess I lost the game.
So I mean, with it being part of Wizards of the Coast, they did use a lot of the Magic the Gathering design, like artwork. So they leaned on that. And it's actually funny. Originally, when they made third edition, they wrote in mass combat, but Wizards of the Coast made them remove it because they were planning on selling the chainmail minigame. So basically, they were selling the game that started it all, and so they're like, "No, you can't do that because we're releasing this at the same time." And so in 2003, they added it in a source called Cry Havoc. So like originally, mass combat wasn't allowed, and they're like, "We're gonna make money off of it." And once finally, like sales, I guess, started to kind of dwindle, or maybe they didn't even tell Wizards of the Coast, and somehow it got passed. I didn't look that deep into it, but they're like, all right, cool, it's back now. So kind of great.
Nice.
So using the D20 system, you had modifiers based on your ability scores. This is when this is introduced, and also saving throws were reduced from 5 different ways of saving throws to based on 3 types of defense.
Yep.
And then you also had, like, they no longer did the Thaco system or the inversion of AC, so it wasn't like the lower number, because like that was another thing with previous editions, is sometimes you'd want a higher roll, sometimes you'd want a lower roll, and once again you have to go through and find what makes sense of it. So that was interesting. They added heroic feats. Here I go. I'm a resident person who talks about feet on this podcast. I've come to realize that as I was writing this on paper ago.
If you want to get on Phil's good side, send feet pics
Yes.
to our email.
But FEAT. I want to see you doing feats of strength. Just know that we are not liable if you hurt yourself doing these feats of strength.
With your feet.
With your feet. There was a focus on balance. So going back to like the weird dice system is depending on what character you were, depending on what race you were, you were basically at a disadvantage. So this kind of balanced it out to make it to where all classes and races would have some sort of equality. And then also more character customization. Before it was kind of like, this is what you are, and like you could write and you could use your imagination, but as I know Nick's planning on discussing kind of more like character creation, there's a lot more customization going from advanced 2nd edition until 3E.
Yes.
You also get the sorcerer class, and the thief is renamed to the rogue. Instead of just the thief, and then you had like the bard, and then you could be a rogue, I do believe.
And then bards actually like had to add like a school school of music to their class. Before it was just like they kind of were like the bard in the D&D movie, not really a bard. That's just what you're classified as. You're just charismatic. But now it's like, cool, to cast spells you have to have a different college of music.
Yep.
It also, 3rd edition removes the whole humans are awesome and can play any race or any class.
A little bit.
Yeah. You had more combinations. It wasn't just humans can be everything, but a dwarf can only be this.
Yep.
Which I found to be interesting.
Yeah, and in 3rd edition, you have, when you want to multi-class, you have what's your favored class based on your race, and then you have your non-favored classes. Anyone can still be them, but then it takes longer to actually level up, unless you are a human, because humans can multi-class into any class without problem.
Humans number 1. Humans number.
Now, the other benefit, because humans also get some additional skill abilities as you level, but the only thing is they don't get any starting bonuses to any of their stats, whereas other races would get certain bonuses, and even in this game, maybe even some negative bonuses depending upon your race towards your stats. So, but that was their kind of way of leveling the playing field a little bit.
Interesting. The 3rd edition introduced the idea of gods.
Yep.
Um, I have the list of them.
I want to hear them. How many are there?
Ooh, 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 ooh. One of them is Grumpsh.
Ah, Grumsh.
Grumpsh.
Grumsh.
Isn't that a Jim Carrey movie?
No,
Oh. Doesn't he steal Christmas? Isn't that the
no,
Grumsh?
that's the Grinch.
Oh, sorry. I get them confused.
I don't actually
understand.
have that on this list.
So that is. Let's see if I can pull it up. But so Grumsh is one of the deities most worshipped by the orcs. So as a half orc, it was suggested that you would follow into that deity as well.
The list I have is Hieronis, the god of valor, lawful good, law, war, paladins, fighters, monks. Moradin, the god of dwarves, and that name is familiar to my campaign. Lawful good, earth good, law, protection, dwarves. Yandala, the goddess of halflings. These names are hard to pronounce.
Keep going.
Elana, Ehlonna.
Elana?
Alana.
Just own it. Just pronounce it however you want, and then
No one's gonna know.
hit us up on at the BS Roll if you want to
Make fun of
fact
me.
check us.
Garl Glittergold, the god of gnomes. Pelor. Corlon Larathan. Cord. Weejas. Saint. I love how Saint Cuthbert. Bacab.
Are you a turkey
Bacab.
or a chicken?
Farang. Gods of the god of roads. Neutral luck protection. Obad Ha, the god of nature, neutral air, animal. Odahamar, which is another god that shows up in my campaign, the god of thieves, chaotic neutral, chaos luck. Hextor, the god of tyranny. Neural, the god of death, and everyone knows this one. Vecna,
Never heard of her.
the god of secrets, natural evil, knowledge, magic, evil, wizards, sorcerers, rogues, spies. Erathon, Erathno, yep, and who is the god of slaughter, chaotic evil, and Gurma, the god of orcs.
I'm trying to discern if you're telling us a name or if you're having a stroke.
Yes, Gruums.
That's Grumsh.
Grumsh. Okay.
And that's
I
who
would've-
stole Christmas, right?
Yeah, I would have spelled that completely differently.
Wait, how's it spelled again? One more time.
Gruumsh.
Okay.
I could see it, but I would have spelled it a little differently.
I would have been like Grump, and then sh. Grumsh.
Grumpsh.
Yeah, I would have had the P. in there.
Grum. There's
Yeah.
no. Psh,
Yeah, but
it's just Grum.
it just has more
Grumsh.
flavor on it when you add the P.
And so they introduced the gods, and I didn't read all of their stuff, but it gives you the classes that the gods could be. Like a fighter needs this god, a halfling, I mentioned that. The gnomes worship this one. So it kind of gives you a direction, like Nick said, the half orcs worship Gurmish, the Grinch, who stole Christmas.
Now, if that ever shows up in any sort of campaign, I'm immediately going to think that this dude's here to steal Christmas. Swear fealty to me. I'm like, no, man, you're going to steal Christmas.
I like my Christmas presents.
Yeah.
And so a little bit of lore that's being introduced into 3E.
Outside of there was one thing that I would say the older editions were lacking was any fantasy when it comes to religion and things of the sort. It was just like, oh, cool, you just be like things that we know in real life.
Yeah. Which 5e is a little bit like that too. It's you can use our lore, but you can also just make it up.
Well, yeah.
Am I proficient in kayaking?
Yes.
Advanced second edition.
they have swimming on here and survival.
I don't swim when I'm kayaking. I kayak when I'm kayaking.
Balance. That's one of the skills here. You got to balance your kayak a little bit.
Yeah, now 5e would be like a survival check or an acrobatics check.
Yeah, now I feel like you're gonna tell me I have to roll acrobatics to kayak.
I mean,
If I'm doing like some sweet like waterfall,
I would say it would be survival.
or even strength.
That's just determines how fast you can go.
It depends on what context you're kayaking in,
Yep, it depends on what you're trying to actually roll for.
or what. I would say the context. Like, why are you kayaking? Are you getting away from monsters? Are you just, lazily going down a stream?
I think I'm gonna roll deception. So you guys think I'm really good at kayaking, but really I'm just.
Let's see your deception roll.
All
What do you
right, here
got?
we go. What's my modifier?
You get a +1.
+1.
Ooh.
That is a 12.
13. You're moderately deceiving people that you can kayak.
Well, I'd have to roll a what?
Perception.
Well, and this one would be, they actually have rolling for motive.
Okay. What am I rolling? What's my modifier?
You get a +2.
Okay. That's a 1.
Heck yeah. But like what he doesn't realize is like I'm just like kayaking in the middle of a field. So I'm just like moving through the field and he's like, "Man, this dude's good at kayaking."
Awesome, man. Anything else about the history, Phil?
No, now I just really want to roll a character that's good at kayaking. So that's what I've moved on to now. Sorry.
Okay, that's fair.
What's cool on the handy dandy character sheet, they have blank spaces so we could make a kayak option.
Oh, going back to talking about the gods is like they actually made like a little source book that was the deities and demigods, and it was a book that provides information on the gods and goddesses of the Dungeons and Dragons multiverse. It includes information on their domains, powers, and worshippers.
Noise.
So like it was its own separate book, and then there was a manual of the planes, not like the ones that you fly, the one that Howard Hughes built, the Spruce Goose. But this book provides information on the different planes of existence in the Dungeons and Dragons multiverse. It includes information on the geography, inhabitants, and dangers of each plane.
Is this where you get like the Feywild?
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
yeah. The 9 hells. And all of that.
Yep.
Awesome. I like finding weird stuff that you can find in the handbook or the DM guide. And one of the things I found is about a cleric, my beloved cleric. A cleric who
Cleric represent.
a cleric who grossly violates the code of conduct required by his god, generally by acting in ways opposed to the god's alignment or purposes, loses all spells and class features except for armor and shield proficiencies and proficiency with simple weapons. He cannot therefore gain levels as a cleric of that god until he atones. See atonement spell description, page 201.
I believe same thing goes for paladins as well. If you break away from being lawful, specifically
Oathbreaker.
lawful, you no longer have your paladin abilities. You can no longer level in paladin, and you have to, give a sacrament to get back in the good graces.
Which now you become the Oathbreaker Paladin, and I do believe clerics really aren't really intertwined with the god too much in 5e.
Not as much.
Yeah, you can't really lose everything. So it's interesting to see almost like the Oathbreaker cleric, if you will, showing up in 3e, that you basically just lose everything if you do something basically bad or against your god's will. And there are other gods, so if you want to be like chaotic evil or whatever, or lawful evil, you could be a cleric of that, so then anytime you do good.
So here's another one. So you can become an ex-barbarian. So a barbarian who becomes lawful loses his ability to rage and cannot gain more levels as a barbarian. Granted, you do retain all your other benefits of your class, such as damage reduction, faster movement, trap sense, and uncanny dodge.
Interesting.
but you lose your ability to rage.
See, I'd want to be like the barbarian's X. So like,
He's not an ex-barbarian. He's the barbarian.
so like anytime I'm around like the barbarian, like they're at a disadvantage.
They don't have
like-
disadvantage in this.
Well, they will when the X is near them. Is what I'm
No,
saying.
they would get so in 3E, instead of disadvantage and advantage, you either gain or lose your bonus to your rolls. So either you can lose like a -2 penalty, or you get a +2 +2 bonus. They don't have the disadvantage. That didn't come around until 5th edition.
Womp,
We'd
womp.
figure out a way to make sure that you
Well, of
had a
course.
disadvantage with your X being around. So the atonement spell on page 201 that you pointed out to me, it takes up like almost a half a page explaining all of it, and I'm not going into one of my monologues like I always
Dang it.
do.
Uh-huh.
But it just kind of to break down like the high level of it is it will reverse magical alignment change. It'll restore a cleric or druid spell's powers. It will redemption or temptation. You cast a spell upon a creature of opposing alignment, so like you can get them to switch sides. And so yeah, it's the material component is burning incense. It require like it's let's see all the things: verbal, somatic, materials, focus, deity focus, and apparently XP, which is interesting.
That is
You'd
interesting.
probably burn XP to.
I guess you probably have to because it's like you like are taking a step back to like go back, find Jesus.
Yep.
Interesting. So that being said, I guess now I'm a fighter because I'm not going to lose XP. I'm just going to start multi-classing as a fighter.
You'd be like a level 1 fighter and not a cleric,
Worth it.
while everyone else is level 8 or something.
I'm
That's
sure
fine.
you would still retain some benefits that a cleric would give you, but most of your spell casting ability or your spell casting ability would be gone. Similar to the barbarian, you still have, as you level up in barbarian, you get other things from your class that aren't specific to the rage, but you lose the rage ability.
I mean, I do have this build that I'm working on that I bought a source book for that is literally a warlock, but they're fight based. So they're like a glass cannon, and like all their spells are to buff it.
Kind of what I did with Calfaris. He was more of a melee range,
So
but you also don't have a shit ton of health.
yeah, so this kind of like helps out, but like gives you like special feats that you can use to. I'm keeping on the DL because I'm saving it for a special occasion.
Well, of course. Of course.
When we ever play again, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I'll 84 years from now, I'll be like, all right, time to play my warlock fighter. Who's ready for this?
What are we playing again? Another.
Hungry Hippos.
Oh, I found a weird table. The climb DC example surface or activity. Yeah. Again,
Blasphemy.
Yep.
Sorry, that's a spell.
We'll have to read that. Because I just like finding weird things. So a 0 DC is a slope too steep to walk up or a knotted rope with a wall to brace against. Yep. A 5 DC, a rope with a wall to brace against or a knotted rope or a rope affected by the rope trick spell. A 10 DC is a surface with ledges to hold onto and stand on, such as a very rough wall or a ship's rigging. 15, any surface with adequate handholds and footholds, natural or artificial, such as a very rough natural rock, surface or tree or unknown or unknotted rope, or pulling yourself up when dangling by your hands. So it almost feels like this DC is in reverse.
No.
Yep. 20, an uneven surface with some narrow handholds and footholds, such as a typical wall or dungeon or ruins. 25, a rough surface, such as a natural rock or brick wall. Or another example, for 25, an overhang or ceiling with handholds but no footholds. Or a perfectly smooth, flat, vertical surface cannot be climbed. I'm very confused. and then I'm not done. Not done.
But I have something to say. Keep going.
There's negatives.
Okay.
Sorry, my screen went up. Climb DC modifier 1. Example, surface or activity. -10. Climbing a chimney, artificial or natural, or other
natural chimney?
Yep. Or
Huh.
other location where you can brace against two opposite walls, reduces DC by 10. -5. Climbing a corner where you can brace against perpendicular walls, reduces DC by 5. +5 surface, or +5, surface is slippery, increases DC by 5.
Huh. Well, you lost me at trick rope because I was just thinking of like this is me just like trying to like me as a person now like bending over try to grab a rope and it just like escaping my grasp. Be like, oh, you tricky rope. But then you start talking about natural chimneys, and that immediately was like, do they mean volcano?
I can't think of like a natural chimney.
I mean, it would just be a hole in the ground if there was some sort of
Like a cave system?
like a cave system with a hole. I mean, a chimney is really just a vertical hole that allows smoke and other air to pass.
I think
Ow.
my volcano theory is sound.
You're not wrong.
I'm now just going to call those natural chimneys. So if anyone's like, oh, the volcano erupted in Yosemite, I'm like, oh, you mean the natural chimney. Gotcha.
The Yosemite chimney.
Ooh. That's, I don't know. That just sounds like a really old dude that just like smokes a bunch of cigarettes, hangs out in Yosemite. Like,
Yep.
oh, that's Yosemite. Natural chimney Yosemite.
I just found that to be very confusing and didn't make a whole lot of sense. Of course, I'm coming from 5e where it's just like, roll this number. Oh, you failed.
True. And I'm sure there's maybe more context outside that chart, but
No.
you know. Oh, okay.
But I mean, like that chart, like so, you know, 3rd edition was created, and like 5e is like definitely like built on the backbones of it. So it's like, you know, when you went from, you know, 2nd edition to 3rd edition, you know, they removed stuff that didn't make sense. So they're like, all right, cool, we're gonna remove a bunch of stuff. But they're like, you know what? We're not going to 4th edition. We're gonna do 3.5. Tune in for another episode later when we talk about 3.5. So yeah, they introduced the sorcerer class. So that was an interesting thing versus
Magic user.
Well, yeah, magic user.
magic user. Well, it's like clerics and wizards had like divine spells. They had to have a book. Sorcerers create magic the way a poet creates poems, with inborn talent honed by practice. They have no books, no mentors, no theories, just raw power they direct at will. Some sorcerers claim that the blood of dragons courses through their veins.
Ooh.
But yeah, I just was like, okay, so, you know, they give them the option to basically pick spells at will, and you don't have to like, all right, I'm a cleric, these are all I got. All right, I'm a wizard, these are all I got. I can do a spell at whatever time I want. It's a smaller amount, but I still have the flexibility. So,
I think that's the way sorcerers work now.
yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not too far off from it. And then with the sorcerers, they also introduced familiars. So having different creatures. So familiars are magically linked to their masters. In some sense, the familiar and the master are practically one being. That's why, for example, the master can cast a personal range spell on a familiar, even though he can normally cast such a spell only on himself. So you're able to do whatever you can do to yourself, to your familiar. Each familiar has its own special. So a bat, the master gains a +3 bonus on listen checks. A cat, the master has a +3 on move silent checks. A hawk is a drone, so you gain no bonuses. They gain a +3 on spot checks and bright light. A lizard. I was like, someone's got to make some weird. You get a +3 bonus on climb checks. So if I go up to one of those walls where there's a corner, I get that lowered by 5, so then or I get a +5, so that's a +8. So I'm gonna find a corner
Boom.
and I'm gonna have a lizard familiar. But as a sorcerer, if I fall down, then I'm dead.
Probably.
So there's that. A rat. All right,
Squeak.
no foley
Squeak,
work
squeak,
there.
Squeak.
+2 bonus on fortitude saves. A raven.
Cacaw.
Cacaw.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
+3 bonus on appraise checks.
Meow.
A snake. I'm a snake.
I'm a snake. I'm a slippery snake.
+3 bonus on bluff checks.
Interesting.
And then a
Bluff.
toad.
Rivet.
+3 hit points.
Rivet.
And then a weasel. +2 on reflex saves. So, and then it breaks down like a raven familiar can speak one language of its master's choice.
Interesting.
And then there's a sentence that just literally says, "Tiny viper." That's all the sentence says. Tiny viper. Period.
Perfect.
You got a tiny viper, huh?
Show you my tiny viper.
You mentioned death. That's all.
I said if I fell down as a sorcerer, I would die.
Yep. Death is very interesting in this. It has a whole system. I love the description here, and I pulled it from the website because I really didn't want to look through the handbook. The way the website says it is pulling from 3E. The most common way that your character gets hurt is to take lethal damage and to lose hit points. Thank you. What hit points represent? Hit points mean 2 things in the game world: the ability to take physical punishment and keep going, and the ability to turn a serious blow into a less serious one. So
I take all blows seriously.
So when you can drop to 0 hit points and still do stuff. Yeah, that's where it gets weird. So damage doesn't slow you down until your current hit points reach 0 or lower. At 0 hit points, you are disabled. At -1 to -9 hit points, you're dying. At -10 or lower, you're dead. So like, if you're at -1, you can still have movement. You can't really do much, but you can kind of escape and crawl away. Yeah, it's super weird.
So it's like getting knocked down in like a battle royale video game
Yep.
these days. It's like, all right, cool.
Yo, dude, I'm down.
I can crawl behind a crate. Cool.
Yep.
Interesting. Can you do any, like, other than crawling away, can you do any other actions?
I'm glad you asked. You can only take a single move or standard action each turn, but not both, nor can you take a full round of actions. You can take move actions without further injuring yourself, but if you perform any standard action or any other strenuous action, you take 1 point of damage after completing the act. So if you're at -2 and you're like, oh, I want to make an attack, I want to swing my sword, you would then take another -1.
Yeah, but my action would be pull this healing potion out and drink it.
Yeah, you could do that. Unless your activity increased your hit points. You are now at -1 hit points and you're dying.
Yeah, I would just do that.
Healing that raises your hit points above 0 makes you fully functional again. Just if you have never been reduced to 0 or fewer hit points.
So the feat tough is in here, but it doesn't give you more health. It allows you to take multiple actions when you're in the negative.
And you can walk on Legos and it doesn't hurt.
Exactly.
Tough feat.
Yeah, I just found that interesting, a different take on it. You lose a hit point every round, so if you're below 0, you automatically lose another one, so you have that up until 10 rounds.
So then you can lose 2 if you decide to take a standard action.
Mm-hmm. And then you're dead if you're -10 or lower.
All right, I just did some sort of magic skill here. I tapped on the table of contents in this PDF, and it took me to where I wanted to go, and that was not what I was expecting. It did not look like a link. So I am a wizard, Harry.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You're a hairy wizard.
that is true. There's an object hardness and hit points.
Ooh, hardness.
So, when you were talking about hit points, I saw hardness, and I was immediately like, well, now we got to talk about that. So a rope has a break DC of 23, which is kind of wild because, you're telling me that if I swing at a rope, I have to do a 23. Is that?
It moves around, it's very dexterous.
But if say you and I are both climbing up a cliff and I'm trying to get you and I'm above you and I hit your rope, is that saying that I have to hit a 23 to
I guess
get you off?
You said that's the DC?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be what you have to hit.
So DC of a rope is 23. A simple wooden door is 13. A small chest is 17. A gold wooden door is 18. Treasure chest 23. So you're telling me, and a strong wooden door. You're telling me rope is as strong as a strong wooden door.
Stronger than a golden door. It's looking more so like the doors and the heavier chests have more of a fortitude to it, where the rope has more of a dexterity to it. So, trying to just cut a rope in the middle of the air, it's going to be harder for you than it would be to just hit a door, but the door might be stronger.
All right, we're going to play a game where you're going to be in front of a door and you're going to break the door down, but you're going to be hanging from a rope. I'll be above you and I'll be swinging at the rope.
Perfect.
Love it.
As long as it's just a regular wooden door.
Yep. It's
Perfect.
it's got to be a strong wooden door.
No, I don't want a strong wooden door. It's the same as the rope.
Exactly.
What if the door is made of rope?
Ooh, the ultimate. The ultimate puzzle. What do we do?
I guess the
It's
game
not even made of sticks. You can't turn it into a snake.
Dude, if you do that in a game, you just broke the game. It's broken. You can't play anymore.
You win D&D by defeating it.
You walk into the castle. You see a door made of ropes. Nope.
The nope rope.
And it's one of those 70 doorways with the tassel ropes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, nice. Some beads.
Some bead. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Why can't I destroy this door?
We're going to completely forget about this, and we're going to be playing 2 years from now and be like, haha, you see my DC 23 rope door. Get through it.
It's the big bad, actually.
I'm just actually just going to light it with fire.
Oh, no.
And it has a DC 23.
Make it do a saving throw with fireball.
It's actually a legendary creature, so it's going to resist your fire.
But then everything in the area that's flammable will then catch on fire afterwards.
Everything else is made of stone.
So, in the third edition book, they talk about marching order, and the first sentence in this part about marching order, there's a typo. It says the characters in a party need to decide what their matching order is. Marching order is the relative position of the characters to each other while they're moving. Who is in front? Who is next to whom? Arrange your miniature figures on the battle grid to represent the PC's relative location. So I just love that. Just right off the bat, error.
There's some earlier too that I found in the book.
Oh, spelling errors?
Yeah. Spelling or just misuse of words.
And then you
It's
have
fine,
to
though.
split treasure. Lame.
Well, sometimes one person has a handy haversack that holds all the gold, and sometimes everyone likes to have their own.
Tisk tisk.
I'm looking at another bizarre table, just because that's what I'm into. It has ages. So it has another table about ages. What would you think a human adulthood is? Like the age a human adult would be?
15.
Are you talking about oh yeah, I think we talked about this in first edition or second edition.
We did,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but now we're
This is
Revised.
3. I don't want to talk about it again.
no, it's too late.
3. They also get if you're a barbarian, rogue, or sorcerer, you get a plus 1d4. If you're a bard, fighter, paladin, ranger, you get a plus 1d6.
To what?
I have no idea. I guess your ability scores.
No.
because later on,
What is this table? What table is it called?
random starting ages.
Oh, you get a D4 for what random age you want to be.
Okay. Well, that makes a little bit more sense because in the second table that I'm going to reference is when you're old. A dwarf is adult at 40 years old. Elf is 110 years old. Gnome is 40 years. Half elf is 20 years. Half orc is 14 years. And a halfling is 20 years. So, getting into old.
I'm almost there in real life.
I'm actually a human middle age is 35. I'm beyond that.
I'm not middle aged yet.
I'm close. And you're close too.
Yeah.
I am -3 from that.
Oh, but we'll roll a d4 to. Oh,
No, wait until I get there.
oh, okay. Sorry.
Old is 53 years. Venerable is 70 years, and then you plus 2d20 years. So at middle age, here's where you would roll for a human. I'm 38. At middle age, you would take a -1 to strength, dex, and con, and a +1 to intelligence, wisdom, and charisma.
So they do still have that too.
Old age is a -2 to strength. And so this is 53 years for a human. -2 to strength, dex, and con, +1 to intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. At venerable age, so this is 70 in human, is -3 to strength, dex, and con, +1 intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So if you're 70, you're taking a -6 to strength, dex, and con, and a +3 to intelligent, wisdom, and charisma. That's how I interpret that.
Yes.
So middle-aged dwarf is 125, elf is 175, gnome is 100, half elf is 62, half orc is 30, halfling is 50, old 53 is human, dwarf is 188, elf is 263, a gnome is 150, half elf is 93, half orc is 45. Yeah, halfling 75. Venerable, 70 years for a human, 250 years for a dwarf. Elf is 350 years. A gnome is 200 years. Half elf is 125 years. A half orc is 60 years. A halfling is 100 years. And then you have your height and weight, and then you have your random height and weight tables.
What's an orc weigh, or half orc?
180 to 250, between the size of like 6 and 7 feet.
Yeah, I lost my place.
That's fine. Let's say I would say that me in real life would probably equate more to half orc in weight, not height.
I would be closer to a gnome, probably. Because I'm short. Not really. So there's male and female. I'm not going to read them all. A half orc male could be 4'10", or 150 pounds.
Wait,
It's their base weight. So
4'10". Are you saying they can only be like they're 4'10"? Or are you
so
saying
here's
they're
where you roll.
410?
Here's
Okay.
where you roll. You're a half orc.
Okay.
Your base height is 4'10". Roll 2d12.
I don't have those. Well, I do have them.
2d12. Your base is a 4'10".
That sounded painful.
I don't even know where it went.
I don't even go here. So 2d12.
2d12. Your base height is 4'10".
I had 12 and a 7. Or sorry, a 14. Nope, that doesn't make sense. A 12 and a 7. So 19.
19. So add 19 inches to your
I had
4'10".
11.
Add 11 inches to your 4'10".
A short fucking orc.
A half orc.
You're a shork.
Shork.
For your pounds, your base weight is 150. You would times 2d6. So take 2 times. So 150 times 2d6.
150 times 2d6.
Uh-huh.
Wait, 150 times? There's no way.
Base weight is 150 pounds, and
And-
the table says times.
So I'm multiplying that by 2d6.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would no. There's no way I'd be 600 pounds.
That's what the table says.
I would be 600 pounds.
Yeah, it says X parentheses 2d6. Whereas if you add the height, it says plus. It's on page 110. It is a table 6.6, random height and weight.
I don't want to look it up because I just want to believe that I'm 600 pounds and
Whereas
I'm
like a halfling
6'7" and 600 pounds.
So, like, for example, it just says a halfling male, your height modifier is a 2d4, and your base weight is 30 times 1 pound. Yeah.
That's just insane. 600 pound half orc.
Right?
That's 6'7".
Yeah, I'm be like 400 something.
And you're how tall?
I was only
11 inches. I would
5'9".
A little short if I've ever seen one.
because it doesn't say inches. It just says height modifier is a plus for a half orc is a plus 2d12,
Yeah, that's weird.
right?
Well, a human male is 120 pounds times 2d4.
Yeah. So 2d4, that is a 5.
Oh, no. So
Is it on the other
here,
page?
then Monty uses the same roll 6 and multiplies it by 2d6 pounds.
Yeah.
His d6 roll is 9, so Tordek weighs an extra 56 pounds. So it's
How does that math work? Oh, you
you're
take
multiplying the two.
So if you roll a 3 and or a 2 and a 3, you say 23
Yes.
instead of
No, so
timesing it by 5. Is that how that works?
all right. Okay, so roll randomly for your character's height and weight on table 6.6, random height and weight. The dice roll given the height modifier column determines character's extra height beyond the base height. The same number is multiplied by the dice roll or quantity given in the weight modifier column. So I rolled an 11
for height.
I would multiply that by 3 and add that onto my base.
Why would you multiply it by?
That's what it says.
Okay. Okay, I see. So
You get your additional height, and then you take that number and multiply it by your weight roll, and then you add that to your base.
okay.
So I would have added 33 pounds to 150, which would give me 183.
That's so confusing when the table it says something completely different.
Sort of. It doesn't do a good job explaining the whole thing, but up top, if you read height and weight, it says you roll your height, add that to your height, and then you take that same number and roll it to your weight, multiply it to your total weight modifier.
Just weird shit in D&D.
100%.
Speaking of weird shit in D&D, so druids have an animal companion in
Pray tell.
in 3E. And so 4th level or higher, ape, a bear, a bison, a boar, a cheetah, a crocodile, a dire badger, dire bat, dire weasel, which I just want to see a dire weasel. That thing sounds awesome. Leopard, lizard, shark, snake, large viper, or wolverine. 7th level or higher, a brown bear, crocodile, Deinonychus, which is a dinosaur, a dire ape, a dire boar, a dire wolf, a dire wolverine, another dinosaur, a Lasmosaurus.
Can a dire Wolverine just be Hugh Jackman?
Yes.
Duh.
But he has a leash.
A lion, a rhinoceros, a huge snake. Ooh,
Tell me about that huge snake.
I will. or a tiger, 10th level or higher, a polar bear, dire lion, which just fun to say dire lion, a mega raptor, which like
Rawr.
what? We're
Mega
in high fantasy, like oh there's a castle, oh check out that mega raptor.
Is that like Mega Godzilla?
It just says mega raptor. It does not go into details, unfortunately.
Well, it's Mega Godzilla.
A
in my
huge
head.
shark.
I would like to know how a druid's going to walk around with a huge shark on land.
Well, they would get like an air elemental. They would do like an air elemental thing, and then it'd be Sharknado.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, did I just create the physics for Sharknado?
Yep.
Mhm.
All right, I'm putting Sharknado spell in my cleric spells for our campaign.
Okay.
It's gonna happen. An orca. 13 or higher is a dire
Aw.
bear, an elephant, or an octopus. And then 16th level or higher, dire shark, dire tiger, giant squid, triceratops, or Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Of course.
Of course.
100%.
So druids are badass in 3E. If they're like, yo, you can have a Tyrannosaurus Rex just like rolling with you.
What if I want to dire Tyrannosaurus Rex?
Level 20th, level 21.
Okay.
So how tall is your orc? Half orc.
Like from my roll,
Uh
5'9".
huh. 9. Okay. Of what class is he?
We're gonna call him a barbarian.
Barbarian. So roll 4d4 and times it by 10. Dude,
110.
110. That's how much starting gold you have.
Hey.
At
Hey.
90. Rip.
Rip. What's fascinating is, so Barbarian's 44, Bard is 44, Cleric is 5d4.
All them tithes.
Yep. A Druid is a 2d4.
Who gives a fuck when you have a Tyrannosaurus Rex
Right.
rolling with? You don't have to be level 16, but I digress.
A Fighter has 6d4, Monk 5d4, Paladin 6d4, Ranger 6d4, Rogue is a 5d4, Sorcerer 3d4, and a Wizard 3d4. All times.
Most
10.
of those make sense. I would think that the rogue would have a higher one than everybody else, but
I would think that,
or at least
well.
higher than. I mean, I get rangers. I guess out there all the time. Get some game. You can sell that for pretty good. but-
Rogue would be stealing shit.
Exactly.
And I would think the monk would probably have the lowest.
Well, I would assume that like material components, so wizards and sorcerers for that kind of aspect would spend a lot more money. If you really think about it, like in World of Warcraft, when you're a magic user, you're always fucking broke at the beginning of the game.
Nerd.
Yep. Because you're always fucking breaking down shit that you would normally sell to make material components for your magical crafting and shit. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Phil, do you have any other weird shit? Because I know Nick has a whole thing for us, I do believe.
Yeah, I think we move into the character creation because I think that's what we're talking about is like all the different things. So I know we have like an actual example of it. So.
Yeah. I went ahead and created a character today, roughly. So, like, I didn't
Like
look
it
at
was
some
rough
stuff.
when you were like creating it. Were you like driving down a bumpy road? And you're
Yeah,
like,
dude, it
"Alright,
was so hard.
nice.
No, so, like, I put on here just 47 for an age. So, at this point, I would have negative modifiers to strength and dexterity and constitution, but some other
'cause
bonuses.
60
But
was the old age, right? Isn't that what you said?
For a half orc, it was like 40.
45 was middle-aged.
Okay.
Which is a -1 strength dex.
Well,
and
yeah, but I was for
constitution.
some reason thinking that it was like old, like an old.
Yeah, it
Grandpa.
said that pretty much, like, when you're pushing, like, 60s, 70s, it's pretty much the end of the rope for you. I think 75 is what they said. It was like you pretty much never see a half work over the age of 75.
Yeah.
But so going a little bit, so you start off, you pick your race, which we'll go over some of the racial ability adjustments real quick. So, and this is, Tim, for you, one of your tables. So if you want to be a human, You get no ability adjustment at all.
Oh,
But you can be your favored class, which we'll talk a little bit more later, can be any. Dwarf, you get +2 Constitution, but -2 Charisma. Your favored class is a fighter. Elf, +2 Dex, -2 Constitution. Favored class is a wizard. Gnome, +2 Constitution, -2 Strength. Your favored class is a bard. Half Elf, you don't get any ability adjustment, but anything for you can be a favored class. Pretty much the same thing as a human. Half Orc, you get +2 Strength, -2 Intelligence, -2 Charisma, and your favorite class is a Barbarian. And then a Halfling, you get +2 Dex, -2 Strength. Your favorite class is a Rogue. Here's a funny part. So a Half-Orc starting Intelligence score is always at least a 3. If the adjustment would be lower, would lower the character to a 1 or 2, the score is a 3 no matter what. So basically, if you rolled really shitty on your rolls and you have a -2 to your intelligence, you have to automatically just have a 3. If
Rough.
you're a half-orc.
rough.
Yep. So I rolled my stuff. So I rolled a 14, a 15, a 10, an 8, a 13, and a 17, creating a half-orc barbarian for this guy. Barbarian, similar to 5th edition for those of you nerds who play that right now.
Nerds.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Barbarian's number one thing is strength. So I put that in strength. 15 in the Constitution, 14 in Dex. I put the 13 in the Intelligence, so I didn't have a negative modifier
Ooh.
on that one. Wisdom was a 10, and then I used Charisma as my dump stat, so that ended up being a 6 because I put the 8 there. But I could have been real dumb if I wanted. But so once you pick out your race and you've got your ability scores, you then pick your class, which you usually want to use your favorite class. So here's what it says for favored class. Each race's favored class is also given on the table for racial ability adjustments. Character's favorite class doesn't count against him or her when determining experience points penalties for multi-classing. So when you go into multi-class, you get penalties for multi-classing if you don't have classes that are favored. So if you just go all in one class, you can still be whatever you want, but you won't really see any penalties till you go into a non-favored class. Or you have multiple non-favored classes that you're multi-classing into.
And the half-orc only has Barbarian as their favorite class.
Each one only has one, except for the humans and the half-elves can have any as a favored. So you don't lose any penalties no matter how you multi-class into those. Everything else, if you want to multi-class, if you only multi-class into one other one, your favored stuff doesn't really hinder you at all. So to get a little bit more into that, say you're a half-orc barbarian. Actually, say you do half-orc and you want to be different and you decide to just be a fighter. And then later on, like I'm a level 5 fighter, and then I decide, you know what, I'm going to start going into, let's say, Ranger. So I'm going to be a fighter Ranger. When I put my first level into Ranger, and I'm already a level 5 fighter, I automatically start losing 20% of all experience I earn. So, or less. So if you were to earn 100 experience for completing something, you would actually only get 80 experience.
Sounds like a pain in the ass to keep track of.
It is. And the reason, the way they put it is, so if I have 5 levels in fighter and 1 in ranger, and neither one's my favorite class, until my levels are within 1 level of each other, or my classes, I'm losing that experience, that additional experience. So once I get my ranger up to 4th level and I'm still a 5th level fighter, then I gain the full experience again until I get away. So the way they explain it is if you have 2 classes that are not favored classes and they're too far apart, you can't concentrate on doing both of them equally, so you lose experience that you would be earning because you're trying to focus too much on too many things. Now, if I'm a level 5 barbarian and I decide to go into one level of ranger as a half orc, I don't have to worry about that because barbarian is a favored class. So that kind of comes as like second nature, like breathing. So it's their way of doing it. But similar, level 7 total, 5 barbarian, 2 ranger for a total of 7. So similar to how our multi-class is in 5th edition was the same thing for 3rd edition.
If it was your favorite class.
If it was your favorite class. And now once you get your 2 classes together, or like close enough where they call even, so you're only 1 level ahead in one, even if neither one's favored, you're still gaining your full experience because you're leveling them both up equally, kind of.
Yeah.
So the other thing is if you multi-classed into a third one. So say I put 1 into ranger, level 5 fighter, 1 ranger, and then I go, you know what? I'm going to do 1 monk. Then I would lose 40% of earned experience. So for each class that's
No,
not
thank
favored,
you.
that you are underneath your top class, you lose that much experience. So overall, really what it does, it just makes it harder for you to level up that way. But you're still gaining levels. It's just slower pace.
I wonder how many DMs just rejected that.
I don't know.
Because it sounds way too complicated for a DM to be like, all right, I have this whole thing. What the hell is your XP? Da-da-da-da-da. Like, it just sounds way too...
You just tell them, like, hey, you earned this XP, and it's up to you to be like, okay, I earned 100 XP, but I have 2 non-favored classes below a favored class or whatever.
I mean, this is where, like, the homebrewing comes in, and,
Right.
like, people try to do the more milestone-based leveling versus the XP, because it's, like, so, you know, all right, you killed 46 sheep, you can level up, you know.
Well, I don't know. I haven't read anything about milestone leveling in 3rd edition at all yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's where the homebrewing comes in, and, you know, a lot of, because, you know, a majority of the stuff that, you know, 3E was made from compromises because it was a guy who's very stringent on the rules and someone who's very loosey-goosey with the rules, and they're like, this works, this doesn't, and then they kind of came together to make it happen. So, like, you know, that's how Milestone is born, is this is dumb, I'm not going to follow this rule, because, like, if we were doing this today, we'd be like, yeah, cool, we're probably just going to do milestones anyways. Talking of you going through your your character, I'm scrolling through and I'm on page 85 for those who are following along, and it's talking about using magic devices, and it is Lyda finds using a magic device can be risky, and it just looks like she's holding like a giant blunt
Yep. That exploded.
that exploded. So like that just it made me smile, and that's right before use rope. So if you're following along and you remember the use rope portion earlier,
Yep.
check out Lyda ripping a fat J.
Hell yeah. Similar to 5th edition, based on your class is your HP. But some of them, like the sorcerer and the wizard, you only get a D4.
Wolf.
Yeah. So barbarians are still a D12. Some of the other ones are higher. But where in 5th edition, D6 is the lowest, D4. So here I am. I built this character into a level 6 barbarian, just straight barbarian. I only have 47 health.
Wow.
Granted, you know, also rolling, you get your first full hit die plus whatever your constitution modifier is, and then based on rolls plus constitution after that. You have, when you level up, you get what are called your skill points, which when you start, also based on your class, you get X number of skills plus your intelligence modifier times 4. Now those skill points that you have, you can put in towards any of the skills that are here. But you have skills specific to your class that you can have higher what they call rank in. So at first level, for a barbarian, climbing intimidation, jumping, listening, riding, survival, and swimming are all the skills that you're basically proficient in to start with. So you have a max of 4 ranks that you can get into that skill. And then every other skill, you can only have a max rank of 2. And you use these skill points into your skills. So, being a barbarian, strength, already having good bonus, dump some stuff into those, and then whatever points are left over, like I dumped into spot, which is like your perception check, but that can only be a max of 2 at first level. So anything you're not proficient in is pretty much half of what your max rank can be in anything you are. So at level 6, anything I'm proficient in can be a max of 9. Anything I'm not has to be is at a max of like 4.5. But you can only put 4. So, and you gain more skill points every time you level up, which is the same number of skill points that you started with, except for you're not multiplying it by 4. So for the barbarian, it was 4 plus my intelligence modifier, which is a 0. So each level, I just gain 4 more skill points to put in. And you can put it in stuff you're not proficient in. You just can't max it out as quick or as well as stuff you are.
Interesting.
Another thing that was interesting for this, so there are certain things like based on armor. So looking at it, starting equipment for a barbarian is studded leather armor. It gives you a +3 to your AC, plus my dexterity. So it's 10 plus 3 plus 2 for a total of 15. But then your armor also can come with something else, which is called your spot penalty or penalty check or whatever for armor, which goes against some of your skills. So wearing studded leather armor, like plate mail, you have disadvantage on stealth checks. But this goes for almost any armor, and the bigger, bulkier metal or bigger, bulkier armors give you a bigger penalty to everything. So with just studded leather armor, which is a light armor, -1 to balance, -1 to climbing,
Oh my god.
-1 to escape artist, -1 to hiding, -1 to jumping, -1 to moving silently, -1 to sleight of hand, -1 to tumbling. And then when it comes to swimming, you multiply that by 2. So it would give you a -2 to swimming, so on and so forth. So I think plate armor was like big negatives, like -4, -5 on a lot of those stuff. You have, so your saving throws, like you talked about it, fortitude, which is based on constitution, reflex, which is based on dexterity, and your will, which is based on your wisdom. So when you're also leveling up, there's another chart that it talks about for attack bonuses and saving throws that go up as you level. Let's see if I can find it to read it.
I'm reading about cleric spells. I found curse water that creates unholy water.
There's also the spell Undead to Dead, which is like basically it's destroy undead. But I just love dead to undead or undead, undead to dead.
That's funny.
So as you level up, kind of like how we have a proficiency bonus, this chart basically lays out what your bonuses are for your class. So at level 6, you actually get to have 2 attacks, which it denotes how many attacks you can have based on your base attack bonus. So first through 5th level, you only have 1 bonus, but it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it goes up to 6 for your first attack, and then your second attack is only a +1. So it's not as effective, potentially, but then it also tells you what your base fortitude save, base reflex, and base will saves are based on your class, and then you also add in your ability score modifier. So level 6 my guy's got a 20 strength, so he gets a +5. Oh no, we'll go dexterity. So dexterity, which goes towards my reflex, I have a base score of +2 plus my ability score of +2, which makes it a +4. Cool thing with raging, you get, when you rage as a barbarian, you get +4 temporary increase to your ability score to strength and constitution. So you temporarily get stronger attacks. You temporarily get more health when you're raging. You also get +2 to your reflex saves specifically. But then you also get a -2 to your AC. I guess because you reckless attacks, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it's a
right.
constant. So instead of like actually having reckless attack as a barbarian, it's just always.
Interesting.
And then as you keep going, here's another thing. So like critical hits for a barbarian. So it'll tell you what your crit multipliers are, which it's not, D&D critical hit, double the dice, or just roll double the number of dice, This one is, so a great axe, it's a D12. A critical hit with a great axe is 3 times the dice.
Wow.
Oh boy.
That's a lot.
Wait, what? Sorry, what was the attack? Like, what were the dice you roll?
So it's a D12 times 3.
3d12.
Oh boy.
Yep.
No, thank you.
Short bow is a D6 times 3. A dagger is a D4 times 2, but you can crit on a 19 or a 20 automatically with daggers for whatever the reasoning. In addition to getting skill points at every level, so intermittently, or each level has something else that increases an ability. So like at level 1, illiteracy, so you can't read or write as a barbarian. That is automatically a thing as a barbarian.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
As it should be.
You also get rage at level 1.
Yep.
I would like to rage.
After you end your rage, you get a temporary -2 to strength and dexterity afterwards until you take a long rest.
Interesting.
Second level, you get uncanny dodge. So you get to keep your AC, your dexterity bonus to your AC, even if you're flat-footed, which I'm sure is kind of like a condition, but I didn't look up exactly what it is.
I feel personally attacked on
Yep.
that, honestly.
Or if you're struck by an invisible attacker. So normally, I guess if you're flat-footed, which could be a condition or a result of something that someone else does, or if someone's invisible, you don't get to add your dex modifier to your AC. But with uncanny dodge, you get to keep it.
I'm flat-footed. What are you saying?
Maybe you should go get some arches, bruh.
trying.
At third level, you get trap sense. So you gain a +1 for your reflex saves when it comes to traps, and you gain a +1 to your AC from attacks by traps. And then you get an additional +1 for each level, or each third level. So you get one, you start your trap sense at 3, you get another one at 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. You start off, so here's another thing too. So old editions, only fighters could have feats. Everyone gets to have feats now.
My dream world. Everyone has feats.
Everyone gets feats, which you get your feats at intermittent levels as well. So you get, your feats are at,
Now I want to do like a one shot where there's a cannibal tribe and their currency is actual feet.
Ugh.
similar to,
Is it similar to 5e where each class has its own feat? So like level 4 or level 3, you get a feat.
so you get same thing with like
get a feat. You get
the
a
trap
feat.
sense. So you get your first feat. Well, you get one at level 1. Everyone gets one, but it's given to you.
Okay.
From what I could read. But but then every third level pretty much, or every level divisible by 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, all the way through, you get to pick another feat. There's a whole feat table.
Tell me more.
Now there are
I'm going to look up this feat table.
prerequisites depending upon what feat you want to take.
All
some
of
them require, like a dex of 13 or intelligence of 15. Some of them require that you have taken a feat previous to it. So
I can't keep this. I can't take this serious anymore.
like power attack is a feat that you can take. Which you can subtract any number up to your maximum bonus for an attack and add that onto damage. And then if you're using a two-handed weapon, either a weapon that's versatile and you're using two hands or a two-handed weapon, any 1 point you take off to add to your damage is actually doubled. So my great axe, I get a +7 to hit with my first attack. I can reduce that by 3 and only get a +4, and then get an extra 6 damage on the back end of it.
Interesting.
But then, after you have power attacks, there's like 3 or 4 other feats that you can take that build onto that.
I just can't handle this anymore.
Interesting.
Some of them might be, they're geared, they don't specifically say classes or races, but there's some of them that are geared more towards a direction. There's another one, improved initiative, so you get a +4 bonus to initiative rolls. There was one that was run. So you can, as an action, you can basically choose to run, which you use both of your actions as movement, but then you get to run 4 times your normal speed. So as a barbarian, my speed would be 40 feet, so I get to multiply that by 4.
Wow.
And then with the run, I get to actually multiply that by 5.
Okay.
So
it's like 1,000,000 feet, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a lot of feet.
But so instead of level 4 and whenever else, depending upon your class, and 5e, where you can choose to get ability score increase or a feat, you get both intermittent all the way through to level 20. And then once you hit level 20, as you would level up again, so basically the same number of points from 19 to 20 to level up, you could then choose to pick up more feats. So instead of leveling up, you just pick up more feats and things like that.
Interesting.
So it's something to do after you hit level 20. You're not just, cool, I'm done, I can't do anything new.
Well, everything gets so chaotic when you're level 20.
Well, that's true, too.
And so, there are feats where it's improved unarmed strike, improved grapple, deflect arrows, and then snatch arrows.
Yep.
So instead of deflect missiles, where you could do all of it in one and you use a key point as a monk, now it's just it's like 4 separate things.
Yep.
Which is crazy. There's one that it's definitely supposed to be shoot on the run, but it says shot on the run, and it says move before or after a ranged attack.
Which is probably an additional action that you get to do.
Dodge, mobility, point blank shot, base attack bonus, and then you get a +4 to the bonus. So you get a move and you get the bonus, which that table breaks down. Like a dodge, you get a dex 13, and then you get a +1 dodge bonus against the selected target.
I'll pass this around because there's so many modifiers and spots for temps and all kinds of shit that you can put on these
It's
sheets.
at the bottom of this. I looked at that earlier.
But it's crazy. It's like, here's your ability and your base, and then your magic, and then your temporary, and then your miscellaneous. Like, it's just all over the place. And the number of skills, like they dumbed that way down when it came to 5th edition.
Yeah.
There's also a forge ring feat that you can take.
Yeah, I'm reading some of the spells still. 6th level bard spell, Otto's Irresistible Dance. Forces the subject to dance.
Yeah, that's still a thing. There's still I mean, it's just kind of like hideous laughter
Yep.
and stuff like that.
But it's dancing.
But
Yeah.
it's dancing.
But you got to be careful because if your companion, tells you not to kill someone, and then the bad guy misses bad and then kills a guy that's dying from hideous laughter on the floor and dies, and then you don't have anyone alive to interrogate.
Lost his life.
Uh,
I
there's-
feel like you're throwing shade at something that happened recently.
Dude, not recently. You remember like episode 3 when we were trying to clear out our safe house in Waterford?
Yeah.
And we were like, keep one of these alive, and then the guy killed his own teammate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens.
because he rolled a natural one. Yeah.
It do be like that.
There's a first level cleric spell called Death Watch. Reveals how near death subjects within 30 feet are.
Does it have anything to do with the planet of Mandalore?
Probably.
Nice.
It's just interesting that you could be like, so DM, how much health is it for a first level
Nice.
cleric spell? I already mentioned you can curse water.
I guess if someone drinks said water,
It's unholy water, whatever that means.
it's good against clerics.
Sure. Giant vermin.
I guess if you think about it this way. So if you can't do things against your deity, like, some religions you can't eat pork or beef or whatever, and then you do, then you got to go repent. If I trick a cleric into drinking some unholy water, probably can't do any of his cleric spells anymore.
There's a spell, fourth level cleric spell, giant vermin. Turns centipedes, scorpions, or spiders into giant vermin.
I'm for it.
Repel vermin. Insects, spiders, and other vermin stay 10 feet away.
So, Nick, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Uh-huh.
We had a conversation a few weeks ago when we were talking about our podcast beloved spell, Sticks to Snakes.
Yeah.
It was removed from 3E, and you said it was in there, and it makes me sad.
No,
I found
I
it-
didn't tell you if it was or wasn't.
You did. You
Nope.
said it is. You go, you want a spoiler? And then you're like, it is in there, but it's not.
I didn't
You're a
say
liar.
anything. 'Cause
All right.
remember, I left it silent.
Oh, we'll have to go back and listen. And you at home, make sure you go back and listen. Um,
To the whole episode.
but it's great because I found this article from 2004, and the caption or the title is "What Happened to Sticks the Snake Spell?"
God damn it.
And it goes, "Has it been eradicated from 3rd edition?" And then for some reason, it didn't make the cut. Not Sacred Cow enough, I guess. Bloody hell, it was so much fun. Anyone remember the general specifications? I'm afraid I no longer have my 2nd edition source books. It could most likely be mimicked by a summon monster spell or design a new one based on those guidelines. And so I just love that 20 years ago, the same conversation and the same sadness that I feel is bestowed upon these people. So I'm living with my ancestors of
Yep.
the Sticks to Snakes kind.
True Resurrection. And this is a 9th level spell. As Resurrection plus remains aren't needed.
perfect.
See,
Because Phil has already harvested the feet.
oh, goodness. And there's all sorts of domains. You can be an earth domain, chaos domain, air domain, evil domain, death domain, and you have certain spells. Like death domain spells cause fear, death knell, animate dead, death word, slay living, which is interesting because the prompt here says touch, attack, kills subject.
Nice.
So I'm sure there's some sort of check in the actual spell.
Nope.
No, you're dead.
Yep.
That's a 5th level spell. It's not even like a high, like it's a moderately high spell, but there has to be some sort of thing. Otherwise, the cleric is a powerhouse.
Cleric is always a powerhouse.
Uh,
And the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Ooh.
First level druid can cast Good Berry. 2d4 berries, each cure 1 hit point.
Those berries are so good.
Oh, for a second I thought you were saying that each one granted 1d4 health, and then you're like 1. I'm like, oh, you're saying I roll a d4, and that's how many berries I got. Because I was like, wait a second, it's a d4, but no matter what, I still get a 1. This is stupid. But now I know. I get what you're saying.
It's even stupider.
Yeah.
What would it? I mean, I guess you could, if the person is dying, because you can have negative hit points, you throw berries at them.
Well, yeah. So they can take that one action. So you take one action. Oh well, no, because you'd be perpetually like in this hell. Well, no, I guess you wouldn't be. Well, you come back 1, and then you go down 1.
Yeah, because you used an action.
So you'd be like, all right, first action, cast good berry, and then you're like, all right, cool, I'm here, and then you use one of your good berries. You go up, then you go down 1, and then you're just perpetually in it. But you could last a little bit longer. Survive.
Creeping Doom. Oh, that's another cleric spell. And it's Bane, but it's called Doom, and it's a -2. And
Nice.
I want to bring that back instead of Bane, call it Doom.
Do it.
But do we still get the D4, or we only get the 2?
You get a -2.
But I want the D4 though,
Right.
because it could be 4.
It could be 4.
So, did you guys see with attack bonuses? Because Tim loves tables.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
on
I love feet. What do you love, Nick?
page 134. It has your size modifiers, which also go into your AC and your to hit.
Like my penis size?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
What am I rolling?
yes. So the smaller you are, the bigger other creatures
Yeah,
are
they are.
relative to you. A human is a big target to a halfling, just as an ogre is a big target to a human.
Oh, yeah. Talk dirty.
Well, don't worry. I'll use my greater spell penetration feat.
Since this same size modifier applies to armor class, 2 creatures of the same size strike each other normally, regardless of what the size they actually are. So, creatures and or characters of a fine size gets a +8 to their AC. Diminutive, a +4. Tiny, +2. Small, +1. Mediums, +0. Large gets a -1. Huge, -2. Gargantuan, -4. And colossal get a -8.
I guess I got a -8.
Yes.
Womp womp.
So, when you attack with your melee weapon, which all weapons, I guess, are just melee. So all hand weapons are strength based. There's no finesse or light or things of that nature. Your attack bonus with a melee weapon is your base attack plus your strength modifier plus your size modifier. Range attack is your base plus dex plus size plus any range penalty there may be, which your range penalty for a ranged weapon depends on the weapon and the distance to the target. All ranged weapons have a range increment such as 10 for a thrown dart or 100 feet for a longbow. An attack from a distance less than 1 range increment is not penalized for range. So if you daggers and darts are like 10 feet. So anything over 10 feet, you get a negative penalty to it. Any attack from the less than increment is not penalized for range. So an arrow from a short bow, which range is 60 feet, can strike an enemy up to 59 feet away with no penalty. However, each full range increment causes a cumulative -2 penalty on the attack roll. A short bow archer firing a range of 200 feet away takes a -6 on his attack roll because 200 feet is at least 3 range increments from, but not 4 increments from its original spot.
You had me at 300 feet.
Yep.
Wall of Iron. 30 HP / 4 levels can topple on 2 foes.
Does it say what the
Yes.
DC of that wall is?
It just gives me... I'm looking at, like, the...
Okay, because I swear to God, if it's below 23, I'm going to lose it. Stupid rope.
stupid rope. I'm just looking at, like, the spell names, not the actual, like, table. So even if I can't find any other stupid spells,
I mean, there's hundreds of them, so I'm sure you could find something wild.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them are stuff that I've seen before, or like a modification of some that are in 5e. Time stop. You act freely for 1d4 plus 1 rounds. That could be very interesting. And that's a 9th level spell? Yeah, that's a 9th level spell. Oh, Weird makes this thing.
Hell yeah, weird.
Yeah.
A phantasmal killer, but affects all within 30 feet.
Nice.
Not all. Not even enemies, all.
But does weird break down like the whole thing where you fight the thing inside, like the dream inside the dream?
I'd have to go all the way down to W.
Oh, okay. You had weird, so I figured it was
I just
you were
saw
on the
it.
page.
I'm getting there. I'm stalling for time. We'll probably read if I can talk. Weird, and then that'll be it. If I can skip down to the W's, unless Nick, you're looking at something.
Yeah, so I found what flat-footed is. So flat-footed is at the start of the battle, before you have had a chance to act, specifically before your turn, your first regular turn in the initiative order, you are flat-footed. You can't use your dexterity bonus to AC, if any, while flat-footed. This fact can be very hard for you if you're attacked by rogues. Barbarians and rogues have the uncanny dodge, extraordinary ability, which allows them to avoid losing their dexterity bonus to being flat-footed, per our conversation earlier. And a flat-footed character can't make attacks of opportunity.
That sounds like my life, because I am also flat-footed.
Me too. Weird. Targets any number of creatures, no two of which can be more than 30 feet apart. This spell functions like Phantasmal Killer, except it can only affect more than one creature. Except it can affect more than one
I was
creature.
like, wait, it can only affect more than one? There's only one person. You're shit out of luck.
Only the affected creatures see the phantasmal creatures attacking them, though you see the attackers as shadowy shapes. If a subject's fortitude save succeeds, it still takes 3d6 points of damage and is stunned for 1 round. The subject also takes 1d4 points of temporary strength damage.
Nice.
Nice. Anything else you want to add, Nicholas?
So opportunity attacks. Per 5th edition, you move out of someone's threatening range. Opportunity attack. But whereas in 5th edition, if I'm next to melee and I try and do a ranged attack, whether it's the person in front of me or someone else, that's not a disadvantage or a negative to your roll. They get an opportunity attack on you.
Interesting.
I don't like it.
I mean, I almost like that a little bit better than taking disadvantage on it. Because some of that stuff gets kind of wonky. Like if they're laying down in your range, it's a disadvantage.
Yeah, hey, I've got this.
Smaller target.
I'm standing over you, and I've got this crossbow held to your throat, and it's at disadvantage.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It gets wonky.
Well, I mean, at that point, I think you could probably just be like, that's just a regular attack. But
Oh, whoa! The crossbow misfires, and it comes back, and it hits your friend.
I mean, the argument I've heard for
They
that,
cast Goodberry.
if you're standing over someone with a crossbow and why it's disadvantage, is because the person's trying to knock it out of your hands. And that makes, I guess, a little sense, but also doesn't, because you would just run up on the person and shoot him. You wouldn't, like, stand over him and wait.
dude, have you ever like watched any action movie? They always kick the bow out of their hands.
Yeah,
always.
John Wick.
Always.
The John Wick of D&D.
Yeah, I mean, 5e gets a little wonky in some of those mechanics.
No, I just want to do that like narratively every time someone like comes
I
at me
stand
with an
over
arrow,
with
I'm
my
just like,
hand crossbow.
No, no.
Disadvantage. What's another weird one with disadvantage and advantage? that I can't think of right now. Aren't spells at disadvantage if they're laying down?
If
too?
they're
Well, it's range because the
any
spell's
ranged
considered
any
range.
ranged attack.
But melee is advantage.
Yes.
So, again,
I'm gonna hit you with the back end of my crossbow, but I can't hit you with my crossbow with the arrow.
Well, you could just hit him
Bolt.
with the back end of your crossbow. It would just
Well, that's what I'm
be
saying. It's a melee
an
attack.
improvised weapon.
Yeah, but it's just like silly to think that okay, cool, I can run up on them and then they get a second to be like, stop it.
but if I had a sword, it's advantage.
Yeah. What if I shoot
Exactly.
if I shoot a sword from a crossbow?
I would say, personally, if you're standing above someone with a crossbow, one, I mean, why not just stab them anyway? You took the time to walk over here. Two, I would just say it's just a straight roll.
But do you stab them with the crossbow, like still in there, and then you fire it after the fact?
I guess you could.
All right, sick.
It's like a bayonet.
Yeah, it's
You
yeah.
stab them and shoot.
Stab and shoot. That's it. We're making bayonet crossbows.
Love it. But like, have you ever seen like? I mean, I'm sure you've like tried to shoot something out of like one of those toy crossbows that aren't supposed to, like the flight path of them.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
absolutely insane, and so you're just like, why did I do this?
It reminds me of a game called Redneck Rampage.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Neither of you. It's probably before both of your times. This is a '90s game, so like, you had the Doom and you had like Duke Nukem 3D, and
Yeah.
this was like the redneck version of those. So you're
Wait, Doom isn't redneck enough?
no, there was actual rednecks, and you could like drink and you'd get health points and stuff. But one of the weapons was a crossbow with dynamite on it, and then you eventually got a crossbow with dynamite with the chicken, and it became like a heat-seeking.
Oh,
So you'd shoot it, and the chicken would explode.
nice.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought of that, but I did.
The art looks familiar, and I definitely see the crossbow. It's where did I just see it? About the game, a week from a redneck's life. Dear Diary, Monday. Well, we crashed that landed UFO in the desert, and Bubba says he wants to go home. Available on Steam for $9.99. Steam, please sponsor us.
Yeah, the whole premise is aliens like landed on the planet, and these two rednecks have to save it. And they have the alien women have like titty guns,
Well, of course they do.
like in Austin Powers.
Well,
Nice.
that's because that's real. That's real life.
Well, then you eventually get that weapon, so then you're holding up the
Just titties.
the booby guns, and you shoot.
But do you
But
think
can you kick with both feet at the same time while walking?
No.
Dang it.
so? Now we're going into our Alien fan cast.
Yep.
Every time you have a movie, like aliens tend to land in rural areas. So maybe like aliens have made contact with us, but the farmers have actually fought them off, or they've met these rednecks and they're like, "No, we're okay. We don't need to be here," and they just got back in their ship and left.
I've always wanted to make a movie like Independence Day, but it's the humans.
But it's like Independence Day, and it's a porno.
Yes. No. It is the humans going to an alien planet like Independence Day and blowing it up.
Yeah, they're going to Independence Dance, and they're gonna
Yeah.
blow it
God
up.
damn it, Phil.
Independence Dance is actually a great name. Independence Dance Day. That is a movie that needs to be made.
I don't think it does ever.
Nick, you want to make it?
Dude, you had me at Inda.
We're gonna be sick next week.
What are you
With
talking
all
about?
this money.
Tim's gonna videotape.
Oh, okay.
We'll just put it on the podcast.
We're all gonna be sick.
We'll just have the audio version of it.
Yep.
Gross. That's all I have. I think we'll talk about 3E,
3.5.
3.5E.
And the synopsis for Independence Dance Day.
We're
The musical.
we're trying to get a one shot together. It's hard finding people.
So if you live in the greater St. Louis, Missouri area and you want to play D&D with us because you enjoy listening to us ramble on for an hour and a half about 3rd edition, then hit us up on the BS Roll at all the social medias.
Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Brian and Valerie are dealing with some stuff, so we wish them the best. And hopefully we'll get back into the campaign again. And of course, we're running into the holidays, Thanksgiving in a couple weeks, and then we have Christmas a couple
Did you
weeks
say
after.
Skanksgiving?
Skanksgiving,
Yeah, that's my favorite night of the year.
Hosegiving.
Yeah, we got Thanksgiving, Skanksgiving, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, candle nights, whatever you celebrate.
Slutsmiths.
Yep.
Slutsmas.
And hopefully the Grumsh doesn't steal Christmas.
I love you. Bye.
Bye.